The hidden Irish language crisis, holiday homes and Gaeltacht communities. In the heart of Ireland, a quiet yet profound crisis is unfolding, one that intertwines the fate of the Irish language with the housing market. As the housing crisis deepens, native Irish speakers in Gaeltacht areas are finding themselves squeezed out, not by a lack of demand for homes, but by an influx of wealthy buyers from Dublin and beyond, eager to snap up holiday homes and investment properties. Imagine this. Over 106,000 people call the 6 Gaeltacht regions, Cork, Donegal, Galway, Kerry, Meath, Mayo, and Waterford, home. Among them, a significant 63% reported they could speak Irish according to the 2022 census, a worrying drop from 72% just a few years prior. The Galway Gaeltacht stands out with the highest percentage of daily Irish speakers at 39%, yet the number of those who use the language daily outside of educational settings has plummeted by 13% since 2016. Language thrives in its environment, and the home is the most vital space for nurturing a minority language. When the chain of language transmission from parents to children is disrupted, the long-term survival of that language is at risk. Professor Margaret Newry emphasizes that to revitalize the language, it must be brought back into the home and to the children. But what happens when homes in Gaeltacht areas are becoming increasingly scarce? Between 2016 and 2022, Galway County saw a modest 5% increase in housing stock, while the number of holiday homes surged by 13%, reaching 4,286. In Mayo, holiday homes skyrocketed by 23%, nearing 6,000. Alarmingly, over 40% of houses in certain language planning areas, like South Kerry and Tory Island, are now holiday homes, occupied only part of the year. In fact, nearly half of all houses in Gaeltacht regions are now designated as holiday homes. Short-term rental platforms like Airbnb are not just small-time ventures. They are massive global entities that have taken root in Gaeltacht areas. A recent report from the Economic and Social Research Institute, ESRI, revealed that while these platforms aren't the sole cause of Ireland's rental crisis, they are heavily concentrated in tourist hotspots along the west coast. In places like Westport and Killarney, 1 in 3 private rental properties is now a short-term let. The disparity is staggering. In some areas, the ratio of entire properties listed on platforms like Airbnb compared to those available for private rent can reach as high as 90-1 in Kerry, 48-1 in Donegal, and 27-1 in Clare. With over 500 entire homes listed as short-term rentals in Connemara alone, Irish speakers are left struggling to find a place to call home in their own Gaeltacht. It's particularly ironic that Airbnb promotes properties in Gaeltacht areas during Seachtain na Gaelge, a time meant to celebrate the Irish language, while local residents lament that these short-term lets are exacerbating the language crisis by forcing native speakers to relocate. Historically, the state has played a crucial role in preserving the Irish language, often through the education system. In the 1920s, subjects like science and hygiene were replaced with singing and history taught in Irish. However, according to Dr. Ira Flaith-Watson from UCD, the state has shifted its focus from fostering an Irish-speaking nation to viewing Irish speakers as individuals. Yet, language is inherently a social phenomenon, and Irish is now a minority language. For the state, the Irish language holds symbolic importance, but for many speakers, it is a core part of their identity. The lack of homes in Gaeltacht areas highlights how the housing crisis has morphed into a linguistic and cultural crisis. Recognizing this, the Welsh Government has implemented a language communities housing plan aimed at mitigating the negative effects of second homes and short-term rentals on local housing availability. In contrast, Ireland's revised National Planning Framework and the government's 20-year strategy for the Irish language fail to address the critical link between housing and the survival of the language, effectively planning for failure. New regulations for short-term lettings have been watered down, applying only to towns with populations over 10,000, leaving rural families, including Irish speakers, without support. Proposals for specific housing targets in Gaeltacht areas are weak, and may come too late to make a difference. Under the Housing, Gaeltacht, Amendment, Act 2001, the government has the authority to provide grants for housing in Gaeltacht areas, but these grants were suspended in 2009. Reviving them could be a step toward addressing the housing crisis. Since its establishment in 1980, Udara's Na Gaeltachta has aimed to create jobs and retain Irish speakers. But if local workers cannot find housing, the hope of keeping them in the Gaeltacht becomes futile. The future of the Irish language hangs in the balance, and urgent action is needed to ensure that the homes and communities that nurture it are preserved.